Okay, today my topic of presentation is freedom to contract in the light of EU regulations, and this topic is a little bit out of these public topics. It considers some private law topic, actually freedom of contract, but the topic is specified in the context of GDPR, since GDPR has a lot of criticism in legal circles. I would like to add one more, and it's related to Directive 2019-770. It would be easier for me to say just directive because that is one directive that I will talk about for the supply of the digital content and digital services. Directive 770 on certain aspects of contracts for the supply of digital content and digital services is a tool which aimed to harmonize contractual rules within the EU single market, digital market, and primarily designed to provide a legal framework for the growing e-commerce sector. Contracts for the supply of digital services content concern the delivery of digital content or services and the compensation for such services, actually price. And the directive further stipulates that its rules apply in cases where a consumer is required to provide personal data to a trader supplying digital services content unless the trader processes personal data exclusively for the purpose of delivering digital content or services, or to comply with legal obligations without using the data for other purposes. Actually, what is very specific in this directive, even though this directive is concentrating to obtain, to provide the legal framework for e-commerce, this directive offers something very new in legal sphere, but it's not new in market sphere. I already mentioned that is regarding the personal data as a counter performance that could be contracted among a trader and a consumer. Conclusion of a contract for the supply of digital services obliges the trader has to deliver data that is produced and supplied in digital form, or service that would enable a consumer to create, process and store data in digital form, as well as to access it or service allowing the sharing or any other interaction with the data in digital form created or generated by the consumer or another user of the services. So that is in wide context some kind of definition of that contract. But what is very important is that the subject of that contract is any digital data, and it could be a very wide range of, let's say, digital goods or digital services, from the e-book as such to social networks as digital service that could be offered by trader. What is very important here is to see that the consumer, so we have trader that is obliged to deliver those digital service or digital good, but content, whatever. And from the other side, we have consumer, which usually will pay or give some fee for that service or content, but directive stipulate that the consumer could also, not exactly by words, but by meaning, could offer also their personal data. What is new with this directive, even though the directive is not that new, is the fact that personal data somehow choose the rule to be counter-performance in mathematical contracts. And we will discuss on opportunity according to national law, because the directive stated that directive on digital content and services do not attack national laws. So national systems are free to keep their general contract rules and everything regarding the general contract rules. But when a contract for the supply of digital service and digital content include obligation to provide those personal data, or if such data are already provided, then directive refers to the application of rules contained in the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, and the directive on the processing of personal data and the protection of privacy in the electronic communication sector, but I haven't analyzed this, the other directive. What is very important to remark here is that we already know, even with the analysis of GDPR, that GDPR as such put a lot of crisis in legal minds because of all those regulation power and etc. But what is very important is that personal data is not just data. We could say that according to GDPR, all personal data are actually data that we could use for identification of some person, or with whom, or we can realize which person, who is a person, and those data are actually embodied person. And if we say that person has rights, personal rights, then we could say that those data are as well personal rights. And what is very important for our discussion is that personal rights as such are the area of very complex rights, and protection of human is as well as public law and private law, and this part of public law is very important regarding contractual freedom or freedom to contract. Why? Because when we want to conclude some contract, then we have to have in mind all those imperative norms, public order, good faith, and etc. So even though I put this slide just for reminding that even though directive, there is no explicit provision of counter-performance in directive, but how could we can conclude that directive has those counter-performance impact on trading, because this text with counter-performance explicitly was in a previous proposal, but since it was very criticized, then they chose to just to delete counter-performance, but not the meaning of that provision that finds place in new directive. What are specific issues that personal data could be asked? First one is capacity to contract, value of data, and termination of the contract. Since we have a lot of questions, I choose to speak just on three of them. As regards capacity to contract, we have to say that, and I already mentioned, but here we can remind, that the directive refers to application of general GDPR, and at the same time, directive keeps national law in that part. So we have to compare those regulations. And what is very important to know is that in this part we can say that mainly general rules predict, stipulates whatever, that regarding the capacity to contract, we can say that natural person is capacity with maturity, actually with 18 years. But some of the contracts could be concluded even before the maturity, and those contracts are, let's say, that is common wider Europe, that is contracts with small value, neutral contracts, and contracts with beneficial for minors. And in that respect, we have to say that this reason why minors are not capable to make contracts is the maturity in the business, because they have to need all consequences of their will. They have to be enough maturity to make formation of their will and to accept consequences in the legal sphere, and etc. And for that reason, it's very unusual if we have in mind that this directive refers to GDPR, because GDPR, as well as general rules, have in mind consent of minors with some respect, and we can remind that GDPR provides that 16-year minor is able to give consent for processing of their personal data. What could be the consequence of it? If we say that we apply rules from GDPR, then we could ask, is it possible to apply GDPR rules regarding the personal data as counter-performance, since personal data, as it's part of the human being and it is protected by human rights, are not covered by, could not be in transactions. So it is a very important question whether a GDPR provision on age about the consent for processing of personal data could be applicable regarding the contracts on digital service and digital content. The general rules and personal data as counter-performance is, relationship between those very important provisions. Even those general rules would say like this. We would ask, is that contract that we will like to contract with minors, is it could it be a valid contract in the context of capacity to contract? And we will value if it is a small value of contract, is it neutral contract, or is it for beneficial of the minors? And if we have in mind that all those transactions that we have on internet, social networks, and etc., we could say that there is no criteria that we could value these contracts as some exceptions that minors could conclude completely independently of their parents. So further specific issue is value of the personal data, and value of the personal data is very important for these contracts for several reasons. One of that reason is of course, since it is a synallagmatic contract, then we have to know, if we talk about personal data, we have to know what is the value of our personal data value in order to compare if we got value from other side which could be delivered for our value of our personal data as value in that contract relationship. And of course, it's very difficult to make that value, but it seems that market and directive ask that, requires that from all participants in digital market. And the reason is, of course, we don't forget the previous question if that contracts regarding the minors are valid at all. But the problem with those value is very, very important, and of course, it has further consequences regarding the termination of contract. But just to say a few words on valuation. And in theory, we have two approach. One is market, which is very difficult to say that something that is not in transaction has to have some value in order to make all those valuation of contract as such from that value part. And the other problem, and of course there is a lot of problem, but what could be very remarkable is that fact that if someone deliver own personal data, it could be a problem for the trader. If we know that someone who delivered her personal data, then there is no way to forbidden that person to deliver further to another trader or etc. So of course we have those individuals valuation, and that is very very complex question as well as market valuation, but however we can say that the value of the personal data is not something that could be certain in the digital market, and GDPR doesn't offer answer to that question. Third question is regarding the termination of the contract and especially regarding the restitution. Since directive leaves to member states to apply their own national laws regarding the general rules and all consequences when contract is terminated whatsoever, then we have those consequences which can be applied from general rule. But what is the problem? If we have on the counter performance personal data or delivering of personal data, and we have those GDPR, the question is very important. Is that GDPR lex specialis? And if it is lex specialis for those cases, we have to ask, is this GDPR something that put in national systems, legal systems, the question if something that according to general rules and traditional law wouldn't be valid, applying GDPR, we could make it valid, which is not, which could be very critical. But regarding the restitution, we have additional problems, because directive as such doesn't mention anything regarding the consequences of the cease of contract, and we have a lot of provisions which are spread over the very different legislatures on national level, directives, and finally GDPR. And if we apply GDPR provisions just in those parts which we would say are right to be forgotten, we have a problem, because if we try to lead a line among all those participants in transactions of personal data, at some point we will lose that line, because GDPR couldn't follow all those transactions, at least couldn't follow regarding the obliged party to make some measures regarding the personal data. And then we have unprotected personal data in digital markets, even though it wasn't the aim, both from the side of directive and moreover from the side of GDPR. So at the end, I would like, I almost forget to change my slides, don't mind please. And for the end, I would like to once again, and I'm probably one of the 1,000 lawyers who would maybe use this opportunity and to re-estimate the rule of the GDPR regarding the personal data, especially now when we can recognize even legal shape for personal data as counter-performance in digital market. Thank you a lot for your attention.